big boss that's special. It ain't no game, but they saying welcome to the second level. Second level.
Hello, Internet, and welcome back, or welcome to the official Level 2 Podcast, episode 60. I almost said, "Any please add details" there. I was like, wait a second, wrong one.
Yep.
My name's Keegan, one half Level 2 Gamers, hanging out with Tom, the other half. How you doing?
I got cold, so now I'm wearing a cardigan. But other than that, all right.
We've been gone for 3 weeks, and I'm going to talk about it in my section, kind of what's been going on the last 3 weeks, because it's been a doozy for me.
We can chill a little bit on this one. This is a metacast.
Yeah. So those of you who are confused about why this is going up on Saturday, we decided to make some changes. So we realized with the new camera, it has larger file sizes because it's nicer quality. We could not upload Indie Please Add Details on time on Wednesday like we wanted to. So what we ended up doing is Codename Morpheus is staying Thursday, as it always has been since Codename Morpheus, probably since Level 2 VR, actually. Was Level 2 VR on Thursday? Remember before pre-Codename? Yeah, I think it was. And then we switched Friday, instead of having this podcast, it is now Indie Please Add Details. So you can listen to that yesterday that came out, or if you listen to Indie Please Add Details, welcome to the Level 2 Podcast tomorrow. Well, today. That makes sense?
Sure.
If they found us from that because they tried to look for this and they couldn't find us and they went to that.
Why not?
That all makes sense?
I agree with
And then this will now be Saturday, all at 11:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. Central Standard Time.
That's what that stands for.
That is what it stands for. But the way this works is I pick a topic, we play some sort of game or have some fun in the middle, and then Tom picks a topic and we keep talking. Yep. So my topic this week is kind of where we've been.
Yep.
Well, we've been in the same places.
Yeah.
Except
for the basement. Yeah.
I've been at home.
I mean, I've been in the basement.
I've been at dealerships. I've been at Firestone.
You had a whole host of crap go on.
Yeah.
And that led to us not recording for 3 weeks, which we do apologize for, but at the same time, life comes first. Any content creator out there can tell you that. But you have some sort of stuff to fill us in on as to your absence.
Yeah. So a couple weeks ago, I had some medical news that was good news. I don't want to go in details about that, but basically it was good news.
It was bad news, and then it turned into good news.
It wasn't bad news. It was unknown news.
Right.
So it wasn't necessarily like
scary news.
Yeah, it was. I was waiting to get an answer, and I got an answer, and it's the answer I wanted, which is always nice. So that was good. And then we got affiliated.
Yep.
Sunday. So Sunday we got affiliated. Monday, I think it was when I went to the doctor, and no. Yeah, and then my car broke Monday too.
Yep.
Yeah. I was like, I don't remember.
Furious
so
punch.
my car decided to not accelerate anymore on the highway as well. So basically what happened was I went to go turn the corner on Monday, coming back from who knows where, probably getting food. And I made a right-hand turn, and all of a sudden, and for reference, I drove, past tense, a 2007 Prius, and I made a right turn onto a street, and all of a sudden my dashboard lit up like a Christmas tree. And I had the red triangle, I had the check engine light, I had every single light I think on my dashboard was on there. Scared the shit out of me because that's never fun. Nothing felt different though. Like, you know how like when something like that happens, like you'll feel like I felt a bump, but it wasn't like anything. It felt like it hit a pothole more than like anything had shook. I was like, oh, I must have hit a pothole. Because I've had my check engine light come on before. Usually it's the gas cap that is the issue, or I've had issues with the car in the past with catalytic converter, which is where in a Prius, and most cars now have they call it the red triangle of death. So if your Prius ever gets the red triangle, take it in immediately, because it's the check engine light's not as scary as that one.
Okay.
That's the death nail, just FYI.
So we do have a Prius, so
yeah. That's the one that the guy's like, triangle? I was like, triangle. He's like, you might be in trouble. But anyway, so that happened. I drove on it for a couple of days because I had to go to and from work still. Couldn't get into Firestone or the dealer to get it looked at, which hindsight, I probably should have gone sooner, but I couldn't because, adult life still had to happen. So I take it in Firestone because check engine light's on. I sit there for probably 3 or 4 hours. They come back to me and they say, it is your hybrid battery. And
it's not bueno.
Yeah, hybrid battery is no bueno at all. So basically, to give you an idea, the hybrid battery inside of my Prius, and it's typical for most Priuses now, because mine was technically, it wasn't Gen 1 Prius, but it was the Gen 1 of the hybrid Prius. So there's 6 or 8 cells, I can't remember total in my vehicle. 4 of them have failed.
Yeah.
and it's $1,000 per cell to replace. So there's that. So that's always fun. So when I got that news, and again, my car's 2007, it's the question of whether it's worth repairing or is it worth trying to save that money and you say put it towards another car, but basically just not spend that money and get another car now. I ended up going because I love Firestone, but obviously with the hybrid, there's other things at play that I want to go get a second opinion. So I went to the Toyota dealer that I've gone to before when my catalytic converter went out, because they're obviously it's their car. They know a little bit more about Priuses, and they seemed way more knowledgeable. And when I went there, the guy came back. As I was waiting, I actually was looking at cars because I had a feeling the death nail was about to come. The salesman's like, what you looking at? I go, well, I'm hoping they bring my car back and say, there's just kidding, nothing's wrong. But I don't think that's going to happen. He goes, again, red triangle was the phrase of the day that day. Red triangle, like a red triangle. He goes, yeah, good luck. But anyways, so the guy came back. His name was Scott. Comes back from Toyota dealer, and he's actually the one who helped me with the catalytic converter back in the day. And he's like, "Dude, you just have miserable luck." I go, "Yeah, what are the odds?" He goes, "Extremely rare." My car has 170,000 miles, like I said, 2007, and he basically goes, "Your hybrid battery is indeed gone, and to replace it is a few $1,000s. Whether you want to do that or not is obviously up to you." He goes, "There's a misfire in your engine that is this one thing that potentially is $1,000 could replace it, or you're looking at a new engine that could potentially be more than $1,000.
I would imagine. Yeah. I don't know much about cars, but I assume engines cost a lot.
Yeah. And then then he had a list of like little things that like he's like, these don't need to be repaired now, but it's something to keep in mind if you are debating on buying a new car or not. Like tire wear, I'd have to buy new tires. I had struts and shocks that were getting worn down, and that's another couple hundred as time goes on. And
tires alone are fucking expensive.
I got them on Black Friday. That's how you do it. That's how you get your tires, Tom.
Fair enough.
Black Friday deals. But anyways, he came back to me with his list. I got it. I said, hey, can I have a copy of that just to have a total to give to my mom, because parents were grateful enough to help me out with this whole ordeal. So I called my mom and I said, hey, this is what I'm looking at. This is what the car is worth. What do you want to do? What do you think we should do? And we went back and forth. I'm not getting into details, obviously, of what happened in those conversations, but we went back and forth, and we decided it's probably best if I got a new car. While this was all going on, I'm still driving my car because one of the questions we asked Scott at Toyota was, how long do I have until this goes out? And he goes, I can't tell you. He goes, you could be fine for a week. You could be fine for 3-6 months. He goes, I can't tell you. It's all based on, because if the engine didn't have the issue, I would be fine, because then I'd just be running on gas power versus battery power.
Right.
He goes, the fact that your engine is misfiring and the hybrid battery's out, he goes, you're going to have no power before too long. And I don't know if because you have a Prius, do you know how the Prius turns on? I learned a lot about a Prius in the last few weeks. Yeah. So the Prius has 3 batteries in it. Battery number 1 is what most cars have. So it's the one that powers on auxiliary and usually powers up the car.
Lights and shit.
Yeah. Battery number 2 is the hybrid battery, which is the one that everybody thinks of when they think of a Prius. It's the big, expensive battery the
one that it uses when it's not
using gas. Yes. The third battery is there's actually a small, tiny battery. I don't know what the voltage is on it, but basically the Prius uses that to jumpstart the 20 volt, I can't remember what the voltage is on the main battery, to then jumpstart the big battery. So what happened was my big battery died, then the strain was put on my other battery, and then that battery died. So all 3 batteries in my car died. So eventually got to one point where my car wouldn't start at all. I was driving home from work, maybe 3 or 4 days you'd say afterwards.
Yeah.
Driving home from work, I was on the interstate. All of a sudden I hit the gas pedal, nothing. My car, and lights came on again, like screaming at me this time, like beyond the red thing of death, or my dashboard set, like the screen in my Prius, because I had navigation, was flashing warnings.
Dashboard just said, you gonna die.
Yeah, it's basically, I had no acceleration at all, so I coasted literally the rest of the way home. Right. I got stuck at the intersection in front of my apartment. I called 911 because I'm like, I'm in the middle of an intersection and I might get hit by a car. Luckily, some dude was nice behind me, pushed me into my apartment complex, and I could just sit there for a second. I was pissed when that happened. I was like, fuck, because you're so stressed, like, what's gonna happen? ironically, that day, so me and my mom were talking about what we need to do to make sure I have reliable transportation to and from work so I can still get paid. And she's like, you could Uber, but that'll be expensive. They were kind enough to get me a rental car. So that night that my car had officially died was the night I was supposed to go pick up a rental car. And I had actually called my sister to come drive me to the rental car place, and she was 4 cars behind me when I died. Oh. So it ended up working out in the end with that. But like, it was just one of those things where I want to thank my parents for helping me out with that, because I was able to have reliable transportation to and from work. It was a lot less. I mean, you know how stressed I was. I was super stressed.
Yeah. You've been a hot mess for like 3 weeks at least. Yeah,
because when you're trying to drop a few grand, it's not fun. But I got that car, so that gave me a chance. I had basically about a week to go car shopping. I was looking at different cars. I looked at the 2018 Yaris. I was like, it's cool. It's a bit expensive because it's a new car. I looked at Nissans. I looked at Chevys. I looked at pretty much anything within a certain price range. And ironically, the car I drove as a rental was a Toyota Corolla. It was a 2015 or 16 Corolla. And I never thought about a Corolla because I was like, to me in my brain, I think of the old ones that just like, they look shitty. They like look cheap. And I was like, this car actually isn't that bad. Like, let me take a look to see what this would cost if I were to buy it. So I ended up going to the Toyota dealer. They had a few of them. There was a 2017 and a 2016 one that I was looking at. I test drove the 2016 first because it was cheaper and because it's a couple years older, but it didn't have as many features. I then test drove the 2017.
You're a feature guy.
Well, I wanted specific things. Like it's one of those things. If I'm spending the money, like when you're talking the difference of like $800 between 2 cars that are very similar, I'm gonna get the higher version of it because it's a little bit nicer.
And like buying a car is almost like buying a mattress or something. Like it's something that
you're an investment
you're gonna have for a really long time.
Hopefully.
Yeah. And so you kind of want to get everything you want out of it. But like I kind of see it like buying a computer as well. Like whenever I buy a computer,
you just get the biggest, baddest you can.
I don't necessarily go crazy with it, but
no.
like, I need it to last me a certain amount of time, so therefore I'm going to choose certain features.
So when I looked, like again, the Yaris, I could have bought the Yaris, but with my budget, it would have been the top of my budget, and I would have been really, really tight on money. Versus, like, I could make it happen, but it would be like you can't spend money anywhere else outside of what you've got assigned here. Versus now with this, I have a little bit more flexibility. If something were to happen, I don't know, maybe a tire pops or something like that. Like those things that happen throughout life, or an unexpected bill or whatever it may be. I'm in a better situation with the decision I made.
We got to get a plumber out here soon because this basement keeps flooding, and right now we can't even wash our clothes, so we have to go to use laundry mats until
my friend did that. Right here. Her pipes clogged up.
The worst. Every time we try and do a load of laundry, the whole thing comes up. It's why the basement's a little stinky, but yeah, it sucks.
Yeah. So
good old sewage water.
Yeah. So I went car shopping, and I would say probably, I'm trying to remember the dates because this whole week has just been a stressful, or this whole 3 weeks, I guess, has been.
It was last Tuesday was when you got it.
Yeah, but I'm trying to think when I went to test drive the car before then. I don't remember, but anyways, I ended up test driving the car, and then like 2 days later, I ended up going in to buy it. And it's really funny because I joked with the guy, the sales rep that I was working with. I go, 2 things. One, thanks for not hounding me, because one of the sales reps I worked with the Yaris kept texting me and calling me every day trying to get the sale, and I was like, dude, I need to figure this out. Like, stop it. And then the other guy, he was an older gentleman. I don't think he believed me when I said I was going to be back, because I'm sure they get that all the time. Like, oh, yeah, I'll be back, whatever. Like, I get it. We do it at our work, so it happens. But like, when I came back, he kind of looked at me. He's like, "You ready to go?" I was like, "Yeah, I've got everything lined up. I want to test drive the 2 cars again and see which one I want." And like I said, there's a few $1,000 difference between the 2 cars I was looking at, and I was able to get them to drop down the price of the 2017 to where I wanted it to be. Basically, the way I looked in going into that deal was I had a number in my mind, and if he could get the 2017 down to that price, I would buy it. If he didn't, I would negotiate the older one, because it'd be cheaper. Then I can negotiate that probably even lower. I won't say numbers, but all in all, I was able to get a car for a pretty decent deal. 48,000 miles, 2017. It's got wireless Bluetooth in it. It's got the weirdest thing to me. There's a couple things about having a new car. One is you forget, like, sight lines are completely different. So there was one time I was driving, and in the Prius, I can see out pretty clearly in the back. This one, there's a bit of a block on the back seat, so I have to be extra careful when I'm switching lanes to make sure there's nobody in my blind spot. It's a bigger blind spot. The second thing is my car has lots of features. Those features include accident avoidance. So I have one feature that has a radar on front of my car, that if I get too close, it'll automatically slow me down. And the first time that happened, I go, what's going on? I figured out how to adjust it, how to turn it off. I've got that all figured out. But the first few times, I was like, why am I going like 40 right now? And there's like 3 car lengths in front of me, which it's a cool thing. I mean, it's kind of awesome to have.
To keep you safe.
Yeah. The other one I have is, I can't remember what they call it, but basically it's when you switch lanes, you have to turn your signal. Otherwise, it'll try and adjust back. It's like, it's designed for if you
forces you to use your signal.
Well, it's planned for it's planned for when you're drifting out of your lane to correct you back into it.
Gotcha.
So I tested it the other night because there's nobody around. So where I live, there's a side road, and then there's the highway, and this side road doesn't change till my exit, so I technically have to get over one. So what I did is I went over, and without blinking, I started merging, and immediately my car wheel I didn't have my hands on the wheel at one point. It just went whoop and recentered itself.
That's weird.
So that's cool. It sucks when you forget it's there, and it'll beep at you saying, "Hey, there's a loud audible noise going," saying you're getting out. You can't override it. So like today, I did it without realizing I did it because I'm not trained yet to turn blinker on every time I do a merge, especially if there's nobody there. But you can override it. It doesn't cause it doesn't like jerk it back the other way. It's just a smooth, hey, come back this way. Gentle motion. So I'm getting used to that. I love the audio system in it. I mean, it's cool color. It's metallic gray. Well, it didn't really have much of choices, either that or
it's
white.
Neutral. It goes with everything.
Yeah.
Plus, it's not white.
It doesn't say it's either that or white or red. There's a red one too, but I didn't want the red one.
White car.
No.
No one wants a white car.
No, I don't want the red one either because it had high mileage or higher mileage.
Right.
Because my rental was a red one, and I was like, "Ooh, this." Because I'm very much like my mom. I'm like black. Give me a dark color car. Yeah. The other stupid thing, the difference between the 16 and the 17 when I was looking, and this is so dumb in the scheme of life, but it's get what you want. The 2017 has a dark interior. The 2016 had a light interior, and as dumb as that is, that helped make my decision of why I wanted to at least try and get the 17.
I mean, when there's not much between them, it's the small things that make the difference. You know, light interior gets dirty easier or more noticeable anyway.
So
yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited. I've got a car. Now I've got a title and register it still. That's a thing I need to do. I also have to take care. Actually, when I get home tonight,
did you do your taxes yet?
Huh? No, I've got to do. That's what I'm doing.
It's tax day today. You know that last day today.
Oh, I've already done my. You talking about income tax?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done that already.
Okay.
I'm talking about. I thought you meant taxes on the car. I was like, no.
Being done today. We dropped them off yesterday. We're so fucking procrastinating about this.
Yeah, mine were done February, March.
I'm hoping I'm going to get some money back this year because we got the business.
Yeah.
And
careful saying too much personal detail on the podcast.
I'm not going to. We have a business that didn't turn as much profit as we would have hoped, which means that potentially there's something there. So we'll see.
Yep. So yeah, I got to pay taxes on my car though.
Yeah,
so that's fun.
That sucks.
And I got to register my plates and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not done 100% with the car. I'm waiting for the title. Waiting for the title information to come in. I'm still waiting for my driver's license to come in that I renewed. Like my driver's license expired, all this kind of stuff. I have a ticket because I had expired plates because of my old car. And I'm like, fuck. So once all that's done, I'll be happy. But I think I made the right decision. It was funny because my mom called me the next day, and she goes, "So how's the car?" And I go, I was concerned last night, the day I bought it, of like, did I make the right choice because it's such a big purchase? And it's like, you don't want to be like, did I rush it? Because I had to turn
Buyer's
in my
remorse.
because I had to turn in my car, whatever it may be, turn in the rental car at the time. And I was like, no, I made the right choice. I'm happy with what I've got. This is exactly what I want. Is it the fanciest thing? No. Is it new? Yeah. Is it, I think, better than what I expected I could get? Yeah. So as much as I wanted a new car, like a 2018, I mean, like I said, this car is a year old. It's not a bad car, but I have a newer. Give you an idea. My dad goes to me. He goes, "You have a nicer car than I do." And my dad works, as you know, as an executive for a music company.
He's a pretty big deal.
So he's like, because he has a 20. I think you have a newer car than him too. He has a 2011 Prius.
2012 Prius.
Yeah, because they talked about me buying that off of them, and I told my mom, I go, two things.
No more Priuses.
I told my mom I don't ever want a hybrid again after the struggle. But she goes, we've had no issue. I go, yes, but you didn't do it when it's high mileage. Like that's, and she understood that. Like the catalytic converter thing, I think was a freak. thing. The battery going out is going to happen.
Well,
on
we've
any
paid
car
ours
for sure.
off now, so like if
That's where I was.
Yeah, if we have
If I had
anything to do
if I had a
with it,
payment, I would have been fucked.
yeah.
But then the other thing I told her is I go, look, I've always bought everything from you guys, and again, they were helping me out in the process of doing it. And my mom was like, we potentially will co-sign if you need it. Didn't need them. So that was cool. So this car is legitimately 100% me. So it's probably one of the few
Good you being an adult.
few adult things I've done. But it was funny because like I told her, like, I had a legit conversation with her of like, I appreciate everything you've done for me, but at some point I need to do this on my own, and I need to go through the process of buying a car from a dealer. I need to go through the process of test driving. I'll ask you questions along the way and make sure I know what I need to ask and what I need to do and all this kind of stuff. So she's always a phone call away, but it feels good. I mean, when the first payment drops in May, it may not feel as good, but right now it feels good because I've got a car and I went through the car buying process is horrible. I can only imagine buying a house. I hear that's just as
I've
bad,
done
if not
that.
worse.
I haven't bought a car, but we've done the house thing. Yeah, it's a nightmare.
But
there's just so much more that goes into it because, like, when you're buying a car, you're basically just looking for the features and stuff that you want.
Yeah.
With a house, those features are like, it's so hard to find something that has everything and is in your price range.
Mm-hmm.
That's the hard part. You know what I mean? So it's difficult. But we like our house. It's kind of falling apart now, so we're trying to get out of here. But at the same time, like, you do what you can with what you have, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah. The one thing I will tell people about buying a car, something that saved me a lot of money, and I didn't realize at the time, just this is how I am. Most dealers online have an inventory of their cars. So the sticker price on my car was $4,000 higher than what the online price was.
Interesting.
So I saved $4,000, and then on top of that, I was able to negotiate down even further to the number I wanted. So keep that in mind. If you're buying specifically a used car, so I think new cars use your rat sticker price, and then they have the deals and all that kind of stuff. But
got that scratch in there.
Yeah, 2 of them. But do keep that in mind. That saved me. Like, it was funny because I went to go test drive, and I was like, the sticker says X amount of money. He's like, oh, don't worry about that. You said you had the online price. I was like, cool. As long as we're cool with that, as long as we can start there. Because if he had said, hey, yeah, that's what it is, I would have been like, hold up, I'm gonna go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So shout out to, his name is Gary. I won't say his last name, but shout out to Gary for helping me out, and the finance guy for helping me out. It was funny because like the finance guy was like, look, because my credit is not the greatest. It's not the worst, but it's not the greatest. And he was, as we were going through the process of financing the car and all this, he goes, look, I'm going to give you some advice that I wish I had known when I was your age. And this dude was probably in his 40s or 50s. And he's like, do this, this, and this to help build up your credit. Obviously, having a car, paying on time will help build it up, but here's what you need to do.
Yeah.
I was like, you're telling me everything my mom's told me, but yes, I understand. So
Mom knows best.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm excited. I have a car. We're going to take it to Indy. It's got lots of trunk space for everything to fit inside of it. These were the first things I ever put in the trunk. Yep. The chairs, I had to bring them here. So first thing in the trunk. The one thing I'm kind of concerned about in this car in the long run is everything, the display or the controls are all touch. So if that goes out, I'm sure that's expensive to replace.
That's not going to go out.
So no, but that's the one thing that if it's non-mechanical. So if it's electronic, computers are expensive to replace.
Yeah, I know.
So that's kind of where I'm looking. That's my only kind of hesitation with it. But other than that, like, I love it. It's way nicer, I think, than my Prius. I loved my Prius to death until it caused me a lot of issues and cost me a lot
until its death.
Till it cost me a lot of money. But yeah, I'm excited for this to be over. I'm excited to be on the back end of things. I think I'm way less stressed now than I was a few weeks ago.
I could tell.
I was laughing playing Overwatch, which never happened for like 2.5, 3 weeks there.
So much rage.
Dude, it was brutal. I don't recommend. I recommend people buying a car not when they have to buy a car, but when they can buy a car.
Yeah.
At least look. And the saving grace for me is, again, my car was 2007. It had 170,000 miles on it. I knew at some point soon I'd have to be buying a new car. And I had planned for that. I had some money set away for a down payment, all that kind of stuff. And that's what kind of saved my ass. If this had happened 1.5 years, 2 years ago, I would have been totally screwed.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Sometimes things work out time-wise. Sometimes they don't.
Sometimes they don't. Well, this kind of worked out time-wise. I mean, it was It's close enough that I could
monetarily you were in a semi-decent place.
Yeah,
so
could have been way worse. Could have been better, but I mean,
and plus, more important than your car shenanigans is that your health is good.
Yes,
which is the thing that concerns me a lot more than you having a busted ass car.
Yeah. Well, when I got the news, I think I told you I was like, I'd rather have it this way than the other way around. Right. I'd rather my car be broken and me be fine versus my car be fine and me be broken.
Yeah,
because you can replace a car. But yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait for the drive to Indy. It's going to be nice. I'm going to let you see my features, if you know what I'm saying. But
yeah, it'll be a good time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna jack your Bluetooth.
Nah.
Yep.
You can't.
Bet I can.
I'm sure
you're going to be driving. I bet I can do it. Yeah.
You can I can connect multiple devices to my car at the same time. And the weirdest thing to me is my car reads text messages to me. So when I get a text message, like today I told you I was running a little bit late because I had to go grab the chairs. And I had a whole nother fiasco of having to deal with the authorities this morning because I got death threats on Facebook last night. A Cold Iron update. It's fun. You should go watch Codename and I talk about it a little bit. But anyways, I texted you saying I was going to be a little bit late, and then you responded back, "Cheers." And my phone gets a notification, my watch gets a notification, and then my car will go ding, and I can see it, and I can tap read, and it'll read it out loud to me. I can't respond. At least I haven't found a way to respond, which is probably smart.
Yeah.
You can just hear it. I can respond like on my phone and on my watch. So you pressed
it and your car went, "Cheers."
Yeah. Well, it says, yeah, I pushed it. It said, "Text from Tom Miles. Cheers." So
sounds like me.
It does that and a few other things. You have customized ringtones and text tones, and it can read emails to me. It's fancy.
Cool.
But I'm happy I have it.
Awesome. You have to send me some pictures so I can put them up behind. I'm sure I can find some, but that's awesome. Alrighty. So moving on to the middle section of the show. The middle section of the show, of course, being normally where we play Name That Game or a game of sub-description. However, we're going to change it up this week temporarily. Just have a brief discussion about something fun. And that is urban legends and creepypasta in the world of video games.
I don't even know what creepypastas are.
Creepypasta is like an internet story that is creepy, basically. That's the short version of it. So I want to talk about two in particular, but if you have any that you can remember or whatever and you want to chime in, then you're welcome to. But there were two that I have participated in as far as been suckered into trying to do it. So the urban legend side of things that I have, this is a fake urban legend. So this was an urban legend created around a video game which wasn't really real, but kind of was at a very small extent. And that was the legend of the Nude Tomb Raider code, which was on the original game.
Of course you did.
I was a child. So the original Tomb Raider game, the very, very first one, where she has like the polygon boobs and everything, there was this kind of this initially people thought it was an April Fool's prank, but it ended up being like, it was actually like a real thing that existed on like a modded source code of the game, where basically you could have like a nude version of Lara Croft and you could play the game as that. However, the rumor that went out was saying that you had to hold, like, it was like one of those up, down, left, right, B, start situations to get the code to work, and you had to do it at this very particular place. I tried to do this code so many times, and I was like, why isn't it working? And I couldn't figure it out. I was like fucking 13, dude.
Pixelated boobs.
I'm going to read a little bit about it, because if you've never heard of this story, it's an incredible story. So, all right. So, starting off, one of the more infamous gaming urban legends, the Lara Croft nude code was a phenomenon that surrounded the original Tomb Raider in 1996.
I was 5.
I don't remember, like 13, 14. Yeah, that sounds about right. And ended up drawing far more attention to the game than it could on its own, originating from a nude patch from the developers at Core Design, which was intended for generic character design and programming purposes. Gamers on PC caught wind of this and sought ways to produce this for their own games. Eventually, rumors began to spread online about a secret nude code for console versions of the game. While the developers continuously denied the existence of such a code, crafty gamers on PC eventually made their own custom mods that allowed them to create their own Nude Raider. Most console gamers were unaware of the specifics of PC nudity mods and assumed it was a secret part of the game after searching for images online, adding further mystique and attention to it. Moreover, game cheat devices jumped on the wave of interest, even advertising that their devices would allow access to naked Lara Croft. It didn't take long for news outlets to pick up the story about a naked female character in a video game, adding more scrutiny to Tomb Raider. Due to the unwanted attention, publisher hiatus took action against websites that hosted mods and access to data on nude mods, resulting in several cease and desist letters from their legal team. Though proving they still had a sense of humor about it, the developer added the rumored nude code in the Tomb Raider sequels, resulting in Lara Croft suffering an instant death from spontaneous combustion. Still, this particular code became infamous due to its unusual nature and how the internet gossip machine turned a simple developer tool into something more than it really was. Did you know anything about this?
Yeah, I mean, I know about the nude code.
Okay.
I mean, I'm aware of it. I just was too young to do it. Like, hot coffee is kind of the first one, my first foray into something like that.
Okay.
I didn't do the hot coffee code because A, I wasn't allowed to play GTA, and B, I was still super young when that happened. I don't have any, like, of those urban legends. I've pulled one up here once we're done with this one to talk about, but like, I knew about the code. I've never tried it. I've actually never played the original Tomb Raider. So
it was something.
I know the triangle boobs.
Yeah.
Did you see the cosplayer that
I did,
that did it?
The polygon boobs.
Yeah.
I loved the original Tomb Raider. It was one of the first games I had on the PlayStation, and so it was just so interesting to me the way that game played in general, because I had no idea what to expect, because the majority of the game you kind of think you're going to be like actually just raiding tombs and killing wolves and things like that, and then at some point very early on in the game when you're underground you discover Tyrannosaurus Rex. And you're like, what the fuck just happened? Like, why am I fighting a T-Rex? And it was at that moment that I was like, this game is fucking incredible. I actually finished that game, which is one of the rare games that I've made it all the way to the end. And at the end of the game, you get this like end screen that's basically just like a little love letter from Lara Croft, like signed with lipstick and everything. It's so goofy. But I read this code as an April Fool's thing, and I didn't know it was April Fool's. So they had the pictures.
Wait, you didn't know an April Fool's joke was an April Fool's joke?
No.
I've never heard about that before, Tom.
It was in the April edition of a magazine, so it wasn't necessarily April 1st that I read it, you know. But it was they had the pictures in there and everything. So I'm like, you know, before the internet, if you saw pictures in a magazine, they had to be real. So you know, it was although the internet was around at that time, and yeah, so I tried it a bunch and obviously didn't do it because it wasn't real.
Yeah, the only codes I ever used was Spider-Man code with Tony Hawk.
Yeah,
I played it the crap.
So you use like the like.
I had a folder from Cheat Code Central that I used. I still have it actually.
I did that as well.
It literally says I have one that says Xbox and one that says N64.
I got magazines because I used to buy a ton of CVG, which is Computer and Video Games Weekly, and then Games Master was another one. And whenever they had a cheat section, I would cut it out and I would put it in a little 3-ring binder. So if I ever had any of those games, I would have instant access to the cheats, and I would like let my friends use it and stuff. So that one I wanted to talk about because it's such an interesting urban legend, and you know, it wasn't real. It was kind of real because it was something the developers actually used, but it wasn't real in the sense that you could actually do it, which I thought was just an interesting one. And the other one that I wanted to talk about was the creepypasta one, which is Sonic.exe.
Yeah, I know this.
You know this one?
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm going to talk about it a little bit here before we go further. The story of Sonic.exe starts in 2011 when a web user by the name of JC the Hyena posted a short story to the creepypasta wiki that described a disturbing and violent Sonic game his friend supposedly mailed him. It came with a warning that he should not play it. And of course, he does. And the game quickly becomes harrowing. Here's the account. The first thing I noticed was that out of place when I pressed start, there's a split second when I saw the title screen turned into something much different, something that I now consider horrifying, before cutting to black. I remember what the image looked like in the split second before the game cut to black. The sky had darkened, the title emblem was rusted and ruined, and the Sega 1991 was now Sega 666, and the water had turned red like blood, except it looked hyper-realistic. So there's a whole entire like short story of this, but the short version is that the author plays the game. It's called Sonic.exe. Exe, for those of you that don't know, is an executionable file. Yep. on a PC, and finds 3 levels in which Tails, Knuckles, and Dr. Eggman, or Dr. Robotnik if you're English, are each hunted down and killed by a demonic version of Sonic the Hedgehog. At the end of the story, the author turns to find a Sonic plush toy staring at him from his bed, blood coming out of its eyes. The combination of Sonic the Hedgehog and a spooky story was too much for the internet to resist, and soon it began to find an audience, and inspired hundreds of illustrations of the demonic Sonic on DeviantArt, a place that's certainly no stranger to weird Sonic fan art. In 2012, Sonic.exe's popularity spiked when a user named MY5T Crimson released a playable game version of Sonic.exe on the indie game developer site GameJolt. Designed exactly as the story described it, a few months later, YouTube's most popular vlogger, PewDiePie, uploaded a walkthrough video of MY5T Crimson's game, introducing the creepypasta to millions of people. As with anything that becomes that popular, a backlash was inevitable. And that's where the story takes a tragically amusing turn. In January 2014, only a few months after Sonic.exe's PewDiePie introduction, the creepypasta wiki administrator decided to delete their story from the website, stating that it was badly written and had too many cliches. But JC the Hyena had a taste of internet fame and wasn't quite ready to relinquish it. He published an angry blog post calling for all Sonic.exe fans to revolt. And he has this massive rant that he goes on to do. I'm not going to bother going much further, but they did reinstate it, and now that whole sort of history lives in the lives of everyone that came across it. Now, this one is super interesting because this is like an urban legend that actually became reality through, obviously, a very talented game developer. But you've seen it, I assume, right? Have you played it?
No.
It's super fucking weird, obviously.
I know there's other ones now, like Mario.exe.
Yeah, there's a lot of like parody versions of it and stuff. But I mean, for those of you that haven't played it, it's just super creepy, basically. It's, I don't know, it's the perfect life imitates art sort of example of something that I can think of. But if you like horror movies and that kind of stuff, it's definitely worth looking into. You can download it for free pretty much anywhere. But it will ruin your memories of Sonic quite quickly. And it has, if you were like not a fan of the drowning music, then don't play it, because that's all it is, basically. It's a bunch of the drowning music while you're getting hunted by this devil Sonic. But yeah, super, super creepy game, and just such an interesting story about how that game came to be, because, you know, it literally came out of the imagination of an internet user and then into real life. So I wanted to talk about that because I love these like urban legend, creepypasta things about video games, and I just thought it was super kind of interesting. Those stories are relevant to me just because, you know, I tried both of them and I thought it was interesting. So did you come up with anything that you want?
I'm trying to find like a legit news article for this, but I don't think I can. I'll talk about the one that I know the best, and it's nuclear PlayStations.
Okay.
Back in 2000, when the PS2 was the world's hottest item, reports emerged that former president of Iraq, Saddam Hussein, had bought up roughly 4,000 PlayStation 2 consoles and was stockpiling them for their 32-bit CPU chips, according to the reports.
I think I read this.
Could be bundled together, and some sort of supercomputer could be used as a missile guidance system.
Yeah.
The story was completely fictitious, but sensationalized news outlets ran with it because of fear-mongering story that combines the terrors of the Middle East with the evil of video games is always guaranteed to sell ad space. The one grain of truth of the story was that it was actually cheaper to harvest CPU chips from the PS2 than it was to purchase outright, but it would take a lot more than those minor components to create any sort of weapon system. And if the PS2 processor could be used, and that's could be used to create a guidance system, imagine what kind of weapons of mass destruction we are hiding today on our game consoles.
Right.
But
yeah, I do remember that one.
I found this. So this is from Eurogamer from December 19th, 2000.
Okay.
So the source is WorldNet Dailies, who reported this initially. One of the most ridiculous stories we've come across recently are reports of WorldNet Daily on WorldNet. Wait, did this take me to the direct article? Maybe I'll read the original. No, it does not take me to the original article. Dang it, I was hoping that was going to happen. The Saddam Hussein has been buying as many as 4,000 PS2 consoles, as well as serving a great source of entertainment for the elite Republican Guard soldiers. Now they are unable to rape and murder, torture the Kuwaits. They are apparently going to be bundled together in some sort of crude supercomputer used for a variety of military applications. Yes, we're rather skeptical too. And what sounds suspiciously like a Sony marketing ploy rather than the words of even the most unintelligible military intelligence experts. An unidentified source is reported as saying most Americans don't realize that each PS2 unit contains a 32-bit chip CPU. Every bit as powerful as the processors found in most desktop and laptop computers. He goes on to claim that the graphical capabilities of the PlayStation are staggering 5 times more powerful than typical graphics workstations, roughly 15 times more powerful than the graphics cards found in most PCs.
Nostalgia.
Pull the other one, it is a jingle on the bells. Okay. With a remarkably straight face, WND adds, a single PlayStation 2 can generate up to 75 million polygons per second. Polygons, as noted in the DIA report, are basic units used to generate the surface of 3D models, extremely useful in military design and modeling applications. Bundled PlayStation computers could also be used to calculate ballistic data for long-range missiles or in the design of nuclear weapons. Iraq has long had difficulty calculating the potential yield of nuclear devices, a critical requirement in designing such weapons. Networking these computers might provide a method for correcting the deficiency. Perhaps the most amusing claim is an integrated bundle of 12 to 15 PlayStations could provide enough computer power to control an Iraqi unmanned air vehicle or UAV. It is all sounds rather fishy, and we somehow doubt we could really blame old Saddam for ruining Christmas for thousands of gamers around the world by buying up the consoles. Sony seemed to have a good job of fouling up supplies all by themselves without any aid from third world dictators. Still, it's a funny little story for the silly season.
Wow.
So that one I was aware of. That's probably the only one I can really like remember. I don't remember it happening, but I remember hearing about it like on the news and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that one, and then the hot coffee, like I said, was
right.
But that technically was a thing, but it wasn't a thing. Like
it was the thing. They just took it out, but it was a thing at some point.
Yeah. So I think I
did do that one actually.
I didn't. Like I said, I'm
pretty sure I did.
I've not done any. Like the only. I mean, you had glitches you told your friends about. Like, have you ever done the Minus World in Mario? No. You can go to Minus World. There's a specific sequence of events you got to do, and you go to Negative World 1, and it keeps going from there. But like those little things like that. But those aren't urban legends. Those are things in games that happened.
Right.
Because you broke the code. I did more of that than I did urban legend things of trying to get things to work.
I just love these stories. I just think it's so great. Like, because video games are a lot of fun for everybody, obviously. But when you bring in this kind of like supernatural element to it, it just makes it so much more exciting. Like, I don't know. I love this stuff. You know me. I'm like a nerd for like urban legends and horror and shit like that, so I thought it was really, really cool.
See, I had the blowing on cartridges as a fix. That's a good urban legend. That doesn't actually do shit.
It certainly fucking feels like it does.
It does, but it doesn't. Like it feels like it does, but it doesn't actually do shit. The other one that ended up the urban legend, but ended up being, I guess it's not technically an urban legend then, was, did you ever play the original Pokemon series?
Oh, you're talking about the
Unknown?
No, the level. What is it? The one level that drives people crazy with the music? Violet Hills or something like that. There's a level in one of the original Pokemons they had to change it because the music combined with the colors was making kids sick or something like that.
Oh, no, I don't know.
That's really weird, yeah.
But I was saying the Unknown was, again, that's more manipulating the code by doing this specific sequence of events than it was somebody telling you to do something.
Neat.
But that give you unlimited rare candy, so every Pokemon be level 100.
There you go. So do you have any urban legends or creepypasta based in the video game world that you'd love to share with us? Because I love this stuff. I could read it all day long.
We've learned that Tom was a dirty 13-year-old.
I definitely was a dirty 13-year-old. But yeah, just anything that you can think of that you did as a kid or that you heard about but you never knew if it was real or not. All stories are welcome because that stuff is just super interesting to me.
Yeah, I'm trying to, like, there really wasn't any, like, I'm trying to think of like a friend telling me to do something. You kind of came into it
in a later era where that stuff was easily disprovable. Bigfoot was a big one. Bigfoot in GTA, do you remember that one?
Yeah.
And they actually put him in a later game because of rumors.
He's not technically, you can't see him in the game. You can hear him.
There is one game they actually put him in, I think, because there's pictures of him. I don't remember which one it was.
It's not GTA 5.
It might have been 4. So. Anyway, so onto my tale. So I chose a nice and breezy tale this week. I knew you were going to talk about your car thing, and then we're going to talk about scary video game legends. So I figured I was going to do something that was like a little bit more like counterbalance, positive kind of to that stuff. So it is called 10 Things I Miss About Home. and I encourage questions because I know you have them or you will have them.
Is your name Bangers and Mash?
No. But the first thing I miss about home is food, so it's a good tie-in.
Lorries.
Yeah. So here's the thing: most people think English food is shit, and for the most part, they'd be right. However, there are certain English delicacies that America has yet to figure out. I know it sounds stupid, but I'm yet to have good fish and chips in this country at all. I've had like semi-decent fish and chips, like that are kind of like fake it a little bit. But the way fish and chips go in England is that you have the equivalent of what over here you call steak fries, except they're super greasy. And you have like the fish just looks like an actual fish that got like battered, right? Over here, every time you get fish and chips, well, cod is good.
Well, it's fried cod patties,
but it's like they're like pellets or something, and they don't actually have the whole fish that's just fried. Like that's how it's supposed to be. Curry sauce and chips is not a thing. That makes me sad. I actually, the last time I was in England, I went to a chippy and I said to the guys behind the thing, I was like, how do you make a curry sauce? Because I want to buy the elements of how you make curry sauce and take them back to America because I'm sick of not having good curry sauce. And they like basically showed me like the vats of weird shit that they used to put it together. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to buy that. But I wouldn't get it through customs, I doubt.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's sort of this interesting version of curry sauce. It's a very mild curry sauce. It's not spicy at all. But anyone that has had chips and curry sauce from England will know what I'm talking about.
Well, something I found really interesting, because obviously I tell people I grew up in Canada. I was kindergarten to 6th grade there, so I had a lot of things. And a lot of the food is very similar. So I feel like, not that I miss the food from Canada, like poutine, but a lot of the food that, like candy and stuff like that, I feel like we're on the same wavelength when it comes to that kind of thing, because we had the British
chocolate
influence.
Is rare to find in this country.
What's the Kinder Surprise? Those aren't here.
Kinder's. Yeah, do they call them Kinder Surprise? I guess they do.
Yeah.
Kinder Eggs is what we used to call them.
Yeah.
But yeah, they have a weird version of that now, actually, but it's like obvious that it's a plastic toy as opposed. The reason why they didn't do it is because they thought it was a choking hazard. You could buy a goddamn M16 from Walmart, but you can't buy a Kinder Egg. But the other thing would be kebab. Now, here's the thing. I'm a pescatarian now, so I couldn't eat a kebab if I wanted to.
You could.
Well, I could, but I won't. But kebab shops are like huge in England, and they don't really do it over here. They do like gyros over here, which are similar but not quite the same thing. Kebab is basically lamb or Donner meat, so it's lamb on a big.
You killed Donner
stick.
and Dancer and Prancer and Vixen,
right? They put it on a big stick and they spin the stick and then they like shave off the meat, which is kind of weird. And then that shaved meat is basically the kebab part, but then you can have like chicken kebab as well. It doesn't have to be.
Well, that's similar to like Brazilian. That's like if you ever go to Brazilian, they do something. Brazilian steakhouse do that where they shave it off in front, but obviously it's used differently.
Right, and then they have some really interesting sauces and stuff that go with it. Like mint sauce on lamb is just delicious. A lot of people would like garlic mint sauce is really good. So anyway, the food. Here's the thing: when Jess first came over to England for the very first time. And we went to go get some food. She cried because she missed home. And she missed the fact that nothing that she was used to existed there.
Yeah.
So, like, she couldn't just go and get, like, regular food or go to Walmart or whatever. Like, there was, like, it was all weird and strange to her until she tried it. And then, like, next thing you know, like, she's, like, demanding beans on toast in the morning, which is, you know, it's pork and beans over here on toast. And she, like, loves kebabs. And she did find a Papa John's once, and she lost her damn mind because she was like, holy shit, they have a Papa John's over here. But yeah, she sort of grew to love it, and it's weird, like, because there is some English food that is super fucking weird. Like, they have jellied eels as a popular dish in London, which I've never tried, obviously, because it's disgusting. And then of course you have all like the spotted dick and that kind of stuff, the weird ones, bangers and mash.
So my dad used to, well, he doesn't do it anymore, but he used to fly internationally a lot, and he would joke that whenever he'd go somewhere, one time he offended somebody of an Asian culture because he didn't try the food because he didn't think he'd like it. So now he goes, he'll try the food that they give him, and then he goes, if I don't like it, I'm going to find either KFC or McDonald's. It's like, there you go. That's the American way.
The American way of life, yeah.
Because he knows those are going to be there. Fun fact, KFC is actually the first franchise to open in China. It was not McDonald's.
Huh. I need to watch The Founder. Have you seen that yet?
No.
It's all about the guy that made McDonald's. It's,
Good old McDonald himself.
Ronald himself. when he left being a clown and opened a burger restaurant. No, number 2, quiet places. Sounds weird. There's not an awful lot of places for contemplation in America, I've discovered. Now, there's a couple. There's like parks and things you can go to. But the parks are densely populated. Like, there's a lot of people that go to a park. It's very rare that you are the only person in the park, I find.
Hiking trails? That's weird. I
don't hike. So I'm not talking about like going into the middle of fuck butt nowhere. Like, I'm saying like just in your town, a quiet place that you can be where there's not. So like this kind of leads into number 3 actually, which is shopping hours, and that is that over here everything is open until like malls and such are open to 9 o'clock, right? Usually 9, 10 o'clock. You have your like big chains like Target and Walmart that might be open till that time, or 24 hours. A lot of places are open 24 hours. Even
grocery stores are open till midnight.
Grocery stores are open till midnight.
Gas stations, at least I know the Quick Trip by me is 24.
Right. So you have so many places over here that are open just all the time, and there's always like blinking lights somewhere with some place to go. In England, everything closes at 5:30. So 5:30 p.m. everything's done, except for maybe one or two like Aldi's, not Aldi's, Asda. Sorry, Asda is kind of a grocery store / Walmart situation. It's actually owned by Walmart. It's basically the English version of Walmart. Relatively new as far as like stores and stuff over there, but that's the only place I can think of that's like a 24-hour no matter what. But everywhere else pretty much closes at 5:30, and it's not open on a Sunday. Only like grocery stores are open.
Completely unrelated question.
Yeah.
Chip brand. I can't think of the name of the chips that are over there. What's your chip brand? It's owned by Lay's.
Walker's?
That's it. I was like, I know it's owned by Lay's or one of them, but I couldn't think of what it was.
Yeah, Walker's owned by Lay's. But yeah, so like after 5:30, everything goes quiet. I mean, people will go out to the bar, drinking or whatever, which does come up later in my list. But, but like, there's this weird kind of moment that, like, okay, if everyone who's working retail works 9 to 5 or 9:30 to 5:30 or 8:30 to 5, whatever it is, everyone's home at nighttime. Everyone gets to spend the night with their family. There's none of this weird retail hours where you're working until 8 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock at night or whatever. Like, everyone can just chill with their family or go to the pub or whatever it might be, unless they work for Asda or a gas station or whatever. And that doesn't really happen over here. Like, everyone is like, there's little to no family time for people that work retail or in the retail sector. And it's
a lot
depressing.
of jobs, not just retail, but a lot of jobs that have weird hours.
Agreed. But it's just like
non-office jobs.
It's super prominent in retail because
I mean, think about how many places here, like you'll see a thing like 24-hour emergency service or whatever. That means somebody somewhere is working.
Right. But yeah, so that's something like quiet places to go to, and specifically tied into the time of day, which is why I say quiet places. Because you could go downtown at 7 o'clock and it's just dead. There's no one there. And everyone's sort of at home, getting changed, watching shitty TV, and maybe they're going to go out later.
Watching The Weakest Link.
Right.
Maybe whose line is it anyway?
Yep. So it's so that's something that I do miss quite significantly. Number 4, the weather. Yesterday in St. Louis, it snowed and rained and was sunny and had gale force winds in the same day.
I think that's a lot of places. I mean, obviously it's based on geography.
In America,
based on geography and which, because I love when you see like the memes on the internet where it's like, my state did this today. I'm like, you're not the only fucking one. Every state has done that at some point.
Yeah,
outside maybe of Alaska.
They say it's the old Missouri saying where you say if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes.
That's the same saying they say in Florida and New York and Carolinas.
But England is really consistent with its weather.
Consistently shitty.
So it's always like...
It's like Seattle.
Yeah, exactly. It's always like a dull, overcast weather with light sprinkles, occasionally a big downpour. You might get 2 weeks of summer if you're lucky. It might snow twice a year at like 1 inch if you're lucky. Like, it's rare that you go through these kind of like drastic temperature swings that you get in a place like St. Louis, where, you can go from being minus fucking whatever, where you step outside and you can feel the inside of your nose freeze up physically, to when we have 110 degree heat in summer. That just doesn't have those extremes. It's like, it's very like level, which I liked because it meant that, no matter what I wore outside, generally I was probably going to be wearing something that I'd be okay with. Whereas if you forget a coat or something in America, that can be the difference between life and death in some instances. So that's kind of that's something that I do miss, is that level-headed nature of Mother Nature.
Yeah.
Back home for weather.
I'm trying to think, because I went to the Hawaii Big Island, and it had like 7 different climates on it at the same time. Wow. Because of elevation and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and
I mean, that makes sense.
Wind, weather effect. I mean, you're in the middle of the ocean, so you got obviously the cool air from the ocean. You got warm air from somewhere. Yeah, from the sky.
Unique. Friends and family, number 5. Obviously, when I came over here,
you can't just hop on. Well, you could just hop on a plane, but it's not cheap.
$1,200.
Yeah, it's not cheap
per person. My friends and family, I miss a lot. My family now lives in a completely different place to where they did when I grew up. It really is just my dad left at this point, and my aunties and uncles and stuff. But my mom passed away. I don't have any siblings, so it's just my dad and his wife that live in Weymouth. Which is a seaside town, very lovely seaside town. We always love to visit, but nowhere near my hometown. So I don't really get to go home a lot. I went home once in 2011 for a day, which was cool. It was nice to be back. But obviously my friends, as you know, I still interact with them from time to time, but they lead very interesting lives. And we have Matt working on some stuff for us still for the change up we're going to have to the show here soon. So I still connect with them, but like nowhere near as much.
It's not the same. That's kind of like, I mean, obviously mine's not quite as far because New York is still the same continent, so I can get there pretty easily. But it's the same concept. Like my parents, it was funny because last time I went home to my parents' house was, I think it was mom was going through her cancer treatment, or right before she did. I think we took family photos or something. I can't remember. It was around that time. And I remember going home and realizing my brother had my room, and it was no longer my room. And I was just like, oh shit. And my parents now are talking about potentially selling their house because my brother's now in college, and it's like, we don't need this house anymore. They're looking at downsizing and going somewhere else, and it's just like, I mean, granted, I only lived in that house for like, technically I only lived there for like 6 years, 7 years, but that's my house in New York. Yeah. Versus like, or not, I guess. Versus not. I don't know. So I know the feeling of like going back, and then when you go back, there's a few people you talk to, but not really. Like one of my people from my youth group in high school just got married. I didn't go to her wedding because we're not really that close. We don't chat that often. But it's just like you have these moments of like, oh shit. Things have changed. And
the weirdest thing that happened to me when I went home the first time after moving to America, because I was here for a good couple of years before I went home at all. When I went home, the thing that I noticed was that I actually felt like a tourist. Yeah. That was weird. Like when I'm going around on the tube and stuff, and I was like, normally that stuff I'd be super comfortable with because, I was just used to it. But the culture difference is so fucking strong between America and England that I just felt completely out of whack. Like I felt like a stranger in my own land, which was a very bizarre, I'm sure there's a word for it, but I don't know what it is. But it's a very bizarre feeling of feeling like a stranger in your own
that's
country.
Like when I went out to Mississippi for college. That's again, parents live in New York. When I came back home for Christmas to hang out, and you get your group of friends because you're like, oh, we're gonna be friends forever, and you get your group of friends together. I remember is Nikki, who was my girlfriend before I went to school, Garrett, Becca, like everybody I hung out with, and I remember coming back home and just being like, everything's different now. Yeah. Like it's not the same, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but at the same time you feel like that's no longer your place. That's no longer your home, which is a weird thing to say and feel.
It's super weird.
You're just like, this is, I've like her. We were at Nikki's house. You know how many times I've been in that house during high school? Like we dated. I was over that house probably at least 3 to 4 times a week, and like going over there during...
That's the weird part about it, because the fact that you're there so often as well. Like when I went back in 2011, I used to go to my buddy Matt's house like every night. Every fucking night I would go, and I was like really good friends with his parents and stuff. And then of course I came back for the first time in a long time,
and you felt almost like a stranger.
Yeah, totally. Like I was like, everything's changed. Like now he has a studio set up over here, and it was just like this weird feeling. Speaking of studio setup, music career / music in general is number 6. Well, obviously,
you could still do that.
I used to be a rapper, and well, no, I couldn't. Here's the thing: in America, I probably wouldn't go down very well.
No.
People don't understand me that much as it is.
But I feel like with the internet, global audiences.
Well, that was the thing, is that initially when I came over, we had planned to kind of keep doing some stuff, like I would contribute verses to things and stuff like that, but I just never really stuck it out. Like I used to, you don't really understand the level that it played in my life, was that like, is all we did was just smoke weed and make music, like every day for 10 years, 15 years.
That was me with sports
and yeah, so like to be here, I made like one song when I was in America, when I lived not by myself, but like when I didn't have a job or friends or anything. It was just me and Jess. And you know, I made a song like one time when I was here, and I liked it. It was one of the better things I've ever done, but at the same time, like, you know, I just didn't really get that drive to do it that I had back in England. I think because a lot of being in England was being in a rut, and being in a rut makes you creative. It makes you kind of want to escape that rut with creativity. And when I was over here, there was so much what do you call it when lots of things are happening at once?
Chaos.
Yeah, that works. That's another word I was thinking of. But yeah, there was so much stimulation, I suppose, that I just kind of didn't need it. And because I didn't need it anymore, because it was very therapeutic to me to make songs, because I didn't really need it anymore, I find it very, very hard to make songs just in general, because I had nothing really to say. And I'm glad that they're still doing it, and you know, they're helping us out and stuff. But yeah, that I miss. But also just music in general, because England has a very, very different type of music that America does. Like sometimes I have a app on my phone that is like an English radio station, so I can listen to like the BBC Radio 1 and stuff, and I'm just like, man, it's so weird what they're playing versus what they play over here. And like I remember when the first time I came over and I heard The Point, 107.5,
which is so
The
bad.
Point. It's a bad station, but at the time I had never ever imagined there being a radio station that was purely alternative. It just didn't exist. It was always like BBC Radio 1, 2, 3, whatever, but there wasn't like, if you wanted like a radio station that was purely something, you had to listen to the internet. You have to find an internet radio station that did that. There was no stations that were purely doing one thing. The BBC would do like 2 hours of this type of music, 2 hours of that type of music, but they'd never have like a whole, like, this is just this, which I thought was interesting.
Look on the bright side, you know a musician now. Our buddy Bertrand.
This is true.
He's actually
Yeah,
on tour. He's on tour right now.
Yeah, good dude. Love Bertrand.
Yeah.
Sad to hear about his puppy.
Waiting for him to come through the STL so you can finally meet him.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the moment you all meet him in person, because he's a very when you hear his voice, it does not match the face.
Not at all.
And like I said, when I sent the picture to everybody, everybody's like, "Oh shit!" But like, it's really funny.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. No, trust me, I know some weird fucking looking people.
Seeing him,
So I'm
seeing him in makeup is wonderful too.
Oh yeah,
when he goes on stage.
darkened eyes.
Yeah. So that's how I picture him. And then, do you ever see the video of the lightning strike that hit his house?
No.
Did he send that? I can't remember if he sent it to the group or not. But we were playing something on PlayStation, and all of a sudden you just hear, and he goes, "Oh shit!" And like, he has a lake by his house, and the lightning has struck the lake, so it was super loud. And he sent the video from a security camera, and I picture, when I see Bertrand in my head, for those of you who don't know who Bertrand is, obviously, which is all of you,
one of our stream guys.
Go look up Random Hero. He's in the band. He's the one that looks like Head from Korn. But basically, he sent the video to us of his security camera footage, and it's this big dude that I picture being up on stage, wailing on a guitar and just having at it, just curl up on a couch with a pillow on his lap. And I was like, Bertrand, if you listen to this, I love you. You know that. But it was great. I was like, oh, that is not how I have you in my head.
He's such a nice guy. I really do like Bert a lot.
Yeah, I'm glad he joined.
Number 7, history. It's better. It's more of it. It's longer.
To call any conflict?
I don't know any of that bullshit. I watched Hamilton the other day. That's as much as I know about American history.
That's what I learned about the American Revolution.
Like, they don't teach us U.S. history, really, in school. We definitely didn't learn about the Revolution. I think for America, obviously, it was a way bigger deal than it was for us.
Like, it's our revolution.
We just lost a bunch of you to colonies, but for us, it was like,
well, that's like a similar experience when I lived in Canada. Like we learned a lot about English history because of Canada's ties to England and all that kind of stuff. We learned a little bit about U.S. history, but a lot of it, like the U.S. history, was grouped in the international history thing, and you learn about your country's history.
Ours was interesting.
But yours
the
is
only
obviously
U.S.
older.
history that we did was like the history of Hollywood, which was great because that's super interesting. But like we did the history of like the entertainment sort of world, which was fantastic. A lot of what we learned was World War II.
Yeah.
It was a ton of World War II.
Yeah.
So it was all about like the Treaty of Versailles. and all
Well,
that
World
kind of
War One
stuff.
into World War II then.
Ours was
Because the Treaty of Versailles was from World War.
Started with the Treaty of Versailles,
yeah, which was World War One, and then World War.
There, but it was all
Well,
about
because that affected. I mean, I'm watching right now a documentary on Amazon Prime called, I think it's just called World War II something or other, like one of those generic World War II ones. It might actually be an English one, and I never realized. Like I'm huge, as you know, a huge like World War II nut. I love that era, the World War I to II era, and I never realized.
Still want to buy Call of Duty though.
No, because I don't like playing the game. But like I never realized how big Nazi Germany got geographically, because you hear like, oh, it sucked up Poland, it sucked up this one, and
Tried to get
France and all
Poland.
that. Well, they got Poland.
Well, when they went into Poland is when we started a war.
Yeah, no, you started. Well, yeah, technically you declared war then, yes.
It's funny. There's a.
But the Battle of Britain
Have you
is
ever
always the
seen
fun
those
part.
like really shitty cheap T-shirts? They have one that's like Hitler on tour. And it has like all the countries that they invaded, and then it says Poland canceled. I was like, I was dying. But not just the English history in general, which is obviously very rich and varied. You know, King Arthur's court and all this kind of shit. Yeah, the monarchy is its own thing. There's so many people now that ask me questions since The Crown became a thing. But which, by the way, you would really like that show, The Crown. It's all about Queen Elizabeth, journey from child to like.
Is it documentary style?
No, it's like a drama, but it's a really well done drama, and it's based on real life. So it's like all the stuff that happens it's got Winston Churchill in it, etc.
Winston Churchill is in it.
But the history is everywhere you go in England. It's not just a case of like remembering your history as a country in general. Like you could be walking around a town and see like Tudor houses and cathedrals and things that reek of history. For example, in Hereford Cathedral, which is where I grew up, they have the Mappa Mundi, which is the first ever map, which is awesome because it has fucking mermaids on it and like snakes and dragons and shit like that, because that's what they thought was going on those days. But it's so interesting, and there's that kind of shit just kind of all over the place, and it's just so fascinating.
And part of that's just because again the age of European history is so much. The U.S. is a relatively young country.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
youngest.
We're 200 and something. Well. Middle East and all that, you've got things always changing. So technically,
they've been there for a hot second. They just keep
they change borders and names. It's fine.
Yeah,
like Yugoslavia is no longer a thing. But like that's one thing I've always been fascinated with. I've never been to Europe, and I'd love to go because of that. Like just walking around in the history. To me specifically, again because of World War II, I'd love to go to Germany because that's where a lot of things went down. But even going to England or France or anything.
One of my old friends does. Walking tours of Auschwitz.
I would love that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think is the wrong word. I'd be fascinated by that because I don't love Auschwitz.
I mean, it's super dark, but
well, I went to the Holocaust Museum, and the way we have it, because we are not where everything went down outside of Pearl Harbor. I've gone to Pearl Harbor. To me, that was such a cool experience. Because Pearl Harbor and the Oklahoma City Bomb Museums are probably the two experiences I remember most when I went somewhere. And it's one of those things of like, because it happened here type thing, and it's real life. And Pearl Harbor, like I knew about Pearl Harbor, I knew the Japanese bombed us, I knew all this kind of stuff. That's how we got in World War II. But when you're there, it adds a whole different element to it. And like you're saying, when you're walking around and these things just are kind of out and about, like the U.S. is also a large country. So that's the other thing.
There's a lot of history in the U.S. and it's interesting history for sure. But I just think, like I said, it's kind of just so much older. Like there's Plymouth is a seaside area that I went to visit my friend at university, and they have this they have like all this kind of like modern architecture, like newer buildings and stuff. Smack bang in the middle of all this stuff is a church that had been bombed during the Blitz, and it's just like this destroyed church, but it has such historical relevance that they never tore it down. So, like in the middle of all this shit, there's just this. Well,
that's like when you go to Egypt, because people think like the pyramids and the Sphinx are like out in the desert, middle of nowhere. There's Cairo right over the edge.
Right.
So like, if you take that photo and you turn this way, you've got a giant city right there.
Yeah.
And I love that kind of stuff where they intertwine, especially if they don't like some. Where my parents live is historical. It used to be called Johnny Meadow because they would have the tide come in and literally would drown the town every like 3 to 4 years, like clockwork. And they have a house there. I can't remember the name of who owned the house, but they have a house there that there's a huge debate whether they wanted to tear it down or keep it because it had been so run down. People hadn't been maintaining it, but it's a historical house. It's one of the first houses in Port Jefferson, and it was one of those things of like, what do we do with this? Do we move it? What do we do? And they ended up deciding to keep it. I don't know if they ended up relocating it or what it was, but I know they kept the house intact. And it's preserving history right now is going to be harder and harder because everything's now is going to be good digital. So I don't know. Sure. It's just it's so weird to me to have those moments because they're so few and far between. At least where I've lived, like when I lived in California, you would go to the Walk of Fame or whatever, and it's like, that's cool, but that's not really a historic event. Or you go to Texas and you go to the Alamo, that's cool.
That's history.
But even that is only a few hundred years old.
Yeah, but it's still a pretty important.
No, I agree, but like at the same time,
me and my wife go on what we call tragedy tours, where we go to places where bad things.
I mean, 9/11.
We went to Oklahoma City Bombing Museum. We went to where JFK got shot.
I want to do that. Dealey Plaza.
Yeah, because you can actually see the X's marked on the roads for where the two shots.
Because the book depository is now a museum.
They leave the window open too, allegedly that the gun was pointed out of. I sat on the grassy knoll, I have a picture taken, but it's. I don't know. It's just super fascinating to me that the kind of history is everywhere. One of our pubs in the town that I actually grew up in. I say Hereford all the time because it's the easiest one for people to recognize. But I actually grew up outside of Hereford in a very shitty small town called Leominster, which Leo Minster is how you spell that. But they have a pub called the Ducking Stool because allegedly, and I don't know how much truth there is to this, the Ducking Stool was last used in Leominster, and Ducking Stool was what they used to prove witches. It was like if they drowned, they weren't a witch. Great logic.
So it was your Salem witch trials.
Yeah, great logic, boys. So that's kind of cool. They have an actual ducking stool in there too. Number 8, getting lashed on the weekend. Now, let me preface this by saying that this is a very English trait. In America, people go to bars, they get drunk.
When you say lashed, I pictured you getting whipped.
No, really, really
drunk. I realized afterwards, I was like, that's not right.
So there's actually...
I was like, Tom, I don't need to know about
There's a problem in England with binge drinking. It's like people will regularly get their stomach pumped on the weekend because of too much alcohol.
Is that why you guys have bad teeth? Because you keep throwing up?
Maybe. But I don't know what it is about the culture there. There's a heavy drinking culture, always has been. The booze is the weather stronger, maybe. But the deal is this: you basically everyone in England, at least of a certain age, works for the weekend. So they work, and then on the weekend they go fucking nuts. Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, they'll go out all 3 nights, sometimes Thursday because it's cheaper deals usually, and just get blitzed to the point of unrecognizable drunkenness. And as much as I would never do that now, I do miss it to the extent that it was something that we did a lot.
Go to a college campus.
It's not the same though, because this is not a frat party or whatever. This is a group of you and your friends going out on the town in a very dangerous area, usually getting completely blasted drunk, and then trying to figure out how to get home.
That's college.
It was,
not me in college.
It was it was scary to an extent. When I look back on it now, I'm like, man, how the fuck did I survive those years? But they still do it, and there's actually whole documentary programs about the binge drinking in Britain and how bad it's gotten, and a lot of it is depression. It's just a general. There's this overarching depression and cynicism in England, which is actually my next point.
Which is why you guys have good comedians.
Which is why we have really good comedians, but also and dry wit, but also it's this mentality of everything's shitty, why not get pissed, right? Mm-hmm. That's kind of the attitude that people have. If you're going to work retail 5 days in a week, you're going to spend all the money that you make on drugs and alcohol, and you're going to go out and get blasted. Tons of pubs, tons of bars, tons of clubs, everywhere you go. We had a club in our town. It was an awful club. No offense to my uncle that owns it. It was called Euphoria, and it was a converted Jehovah's Witness hole. So it was this, church, basically, that they turned into a nightclub. And they had, foam parties there. This is in a tiny little fucking town. They had foam parties. It was just so weird.
It sounds like college. Like it really sounds so a traditional
I went to
college
college
town.
and we got drunk and we went out and stuff, but this is like almost like a different, I don't know, it's like a different vibe, you know?
Well, so it sounds like a college town. So like when I went to school in Mississippi, the nearest city was Memphis, an hour-ish north, but like you were stuck inside of Oxford. And Oxford, Mississippi, not Oxford, England, Oxford, Mississippi, when school was out, it was pretty much vacant. When school was in, you add 50, 60,000 people, the town then lights up and you have all these
So take that and put it in every single town.
But that's what I'm saying.
That's the extent of what you're dealing with, yeah.
That's what it sounds like. It's basically my experience at Ole Miss was the weekends. Like during the week, you did your shit. You might go out, like you said, maybe Thursday, Friday. Yeah. But like when Saturday rolled around, college football would happen.
We had a club called Play in Hereford that was £8 or £8. Oh God, I've fucking been too long. £8 all you can drink. You would pay £8 on the door.
Yeah, we don't do that.
And it was infinite drinks.
We have cover charges, and then you pay.
You would get so fucking wasted. And it's something they just don't do that in certain areas over here. There's like some places that you go to where, yes, that's the place. Boston, I imagine, is quite like that. But yeah, this was everywhere. Every small town, every village, doesn't matter. People would do the same thing. And leading into number 9, the underdog mentality / cynicism. I miss that. I miss being okay with losing, which you're smiling because you know what I'm talking about.
I hate losing,
but it's this thing, and it's bred into every English person that it's okay to lose. Like it sucks, but at the same time, what are you gonna do?
If you lose, you're just a loser.
Well, no, that's not necessarily the case. If you lose, you could just be unlucky. You could have had a bad day. The other team could just be better. Like it doesn't make you a loser.
You don't want to
it just means that, like, not like in that sense, but the thing about it is no one really cares. Like we're just kind of used to it. We're used to losing stuff. We lost half of the world when we gave it back to people. But like when we're playing sporting events, right? So England always loses in football. It just happens. We won one time in '66, and
we don't even make the World Cup, so
no.
There's that.
But you just make up your own World Series of things. We're the best in the world in baseball.
We got the Overwatch League now.
Right. That's something. We don't.
We've got baseball, football, basketball.
I was watching like CS:GO tournaments a lot, and like there's no English players because they all suck. Great. I kind of knew that was going to happen because we suck at stuff. So, like watching football, like every year we think we're going to make it, or every 4 years we think we're going to make it, and we don't, and we're just kind of like so used to it that it's just like kind of like, well, we're just going to get pissed and have a good time anyway. Like
versus me, that's like fuck this.
The difference kind of between the two countries, and this is a weird thing that we talked about. Me and my buddies used to talk about this a lot. Actually, the difference between America and England as far as like attitudes towards winning and losing was that in America you're taught to celebrate your victories, but when you lose, don't really do that. In England, either way, you're celebrating, right? If you lose, you drown your sorrows. If you win, yay. You know what I mean? But the wins almost aren't as high just because we're so used to kind of like not winning that when we win, we're like, oh shit, we won. You know what I mean? Like we're surprised
versus me screaming at the TV.
Right.
So when Fusion were playing against London and they made the stage 2 playoffs, I was at work, literally on the edge of my seat, watching this thing for them to go to the next round, and I was in back and I screamed and I completely forgot where I was for a second, and I go, yeah, and our manager comes around the corner and she's like, what's wrong? I was like, don't worry about it.
Really good order.
Yeah.
really good run.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, but it's kind of something that I miss is the nature of being able to be self-deprecating and be okay with it. Because in America, you don't get a lot of that.
I hate losing.
Like everyone has to be the best at everything, and this is the reason again why Americans don't do very well in England is because of this kind of braggadocio nature of being an American, or the bravado of being an American is that you're so used to being like top of the world and winning at everything. And
I don't feel this, but Americans are the best, Tom.
Right, yeah, except for
what we're taught,
like healthcare and education and everything else. But it's
but we're still the best.
At some point, you guys were the best, and that's the thing. Like there was a point where America was like the guiding light that everyone looked up to.
30s through probably I'd say maybe 50s ish.
I'd even go as far as to say 50s through 90s. I would say like from the 50s through the 90s, because I'm not counting the early years because everyone sucked then, but like from
everyone wanted to kill each other.
The prosperity of the 50s
after
all
World
the
War
way
II.
through to like the 90s, pre 9/11 basically, pre like all that shit that went down, America was the leading light of the world, and everyone looked up to it, and everyone, like, you guys had great everything, and mostly for entertainment purposes. The entertainment that was being churned out of America was chewed up by everyone else, almost like a propaganda. Like, it was kind of like, man, look at Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, look at Saved by the Bell, look at, like, these guys have the best time ever. And, like, you know, we were jealous of that, and we were just kind of like, man, why is everything so much awesomer in America? They have bigger burgers, they have better, you know, this, that, and the other. These are real things.
We also have bigger waistlines.
These are real thoughts that went through my head as a child, and and you know, like, now I'm over here, and people are still saying that when it's not true, which is what kind of bugs me a little bit. Like, yes, American people are fucking beautiful, and I love each and every one of you, but as a whole, right, the country's not doing great right now. And that, I mean, that doesn't matter who the president is. I'm not going to get political with it. I'm just saying, like, in general, education is a hot mess. You know, like, healthcare is a hot mess. And there's all these kind of things that have just been slipped by the wayside due to government greed of any political orientation. Doesn't matter where you are. Government greed in general is kind of ruining the country. But in England, government greed still sucks. Like, they're just as bad as they are over here, believe me. But there's this kind of, like, almost like, it's to be expected, we're losers. You know what I mean? Like, they just kind of like, nah, well, we're just going to tear into them in the papers and make fun of them, and everything will be great. And that's that kind of, like, underdog cynicism level that I miss, because there's not a lot of people like that over here that kind of live in that world of just consistent underdog mentality and cynicism. So that's one thing that I do miss. And lastly, accents. I miss them, man. I miss having the regional accents that I used to hear a lot more frequently over there than I ever do over here.
There are regional accents here, but it's so much further away.
In the Midwest, they're all basically the same. Like, you really have to go, like, Tennessee or something to get, like, a really different accent.
Go south, go to Carolinas, go to the north, go to the west.
And even then, like, they're not the same. Like, yes, you guys have accents, and yes, to some extent they amuse me, but not the same level that, like, a Geordie and a Scouse accent and, like, you know, those types of accents that you would get back home. The regional difference, if you think about the geographical area covered by a country like England, which is what you could fit, 3 Englands in Texas, right? And then you have, like, all this variation from town to town, literally, like, even, like, within a 13-mile radius.
That means you all don't talk to each other.
That's true.
That's what that means.
Keep to ourselves.
That's literally what that means. Geographic isolation. Look it up. Google it. It's a thing.
But it's something that, you know, I miss that variation in accent, and even not even just within England, but also, like, the fact that, like, Wales and Scotland and Ireland and all those guys, they would be prominently featured on our television too. So there would be people with Scottish accents and Welsh accents and stuff, and you don't really get that over here. You don't really get that much of a variation
because they look for a certain voice to be on.
Right, and it's always like the clean-cut American guy voice, and that's fine. Like, there's a clean-cut BBC guy voice as well. I get it, but, like, for most people watching just your average TV show, there's going to be at least 4 or 5 different accents on that show, just based upon the fact that people come from different towns, all have different accents. So, and it doesn't matter how big or small your town is. So I miss that a lot, like the kind of the variation almost, and like, and also that goes to cultural as well, in terms of, like, there's a lot of Indian people in England. There's not that many that I've ever seen in America. There's a couple, obviously, but
well, you guys had the East India Trading Company for the longest time.
Well, we fucking owned India for the longest time. Yeah. So like, a lot of Indian people after the whole whatever went down there, I don't know my history as far as that's concerned, but a lot of Indian people came to live in England, and, you know, that was a heavy part of our culture, was mixing Indian and English culture together.
We have I think the Asian culture in the States, Asian in certain places, and Hispanic.
Minnesota is huge for Vietnamese,
and then Hispanic is huge, obviously, especially when you go southwest.
Right. But you guys, like, also border that country. Like, for us, like, India is, like, miles away from England, but we still have a shit ton of Indian people. Indian people with thick English accents is the greatest thing ever. I
met an English guy named Franz, black English dude named Franz, and it was wonderful. He played soccer against him. He wasn't very good. He was not good at all. Played for Stony Brook.
But yeah, there's this kind of like they say America's a melting pot, and it is, but it's a melting pot that has an awful lot of racism in it. And even though I would never deny that there's not a shit ton of racism in England, it almost seems like it's lesser so. Like there's so many people that grow up together in the same area from different cultures and races and creeds and stuff. It's way less segregated than it is here.
Again, I think part of that also is just size.
Yeah, living on top of each other. Yeah, sure, I could see that. I mean, there's certain towns that just don't have that many people from different cultures in it, but like over here, St. Louis especially, like St. Louis is one of the most segregated places in America. You know, like we talk about like Skinker, you go down Skinker Boulevard and like you can go from like crack houses to $1 million mansions in 30 seconds. And like there's this kind of great divide of people due to white flight and all this other kind of stuff that happened in the 80s and 90s. But in England, I feel like there's a lot more of that like mixed together. Like no one gives a shit who you are as long as you're English. And that's kind of where it came from. It was like,
but if you're not English,
the
fuck
sort
you.
of everybody's American thing, like that, like everybody's English thing works there too. But, you know, then they opened the doors to the EU, and then the racism started up pretty heavily because apparently everyone else in the rest of Europe really wanted to move to England. So we had a massive influx of people from like Poland and Russia and Romania and Croatia and all those places. So that's when it started to get pretty bad again. But yeah, that I just miss that. I miss the difference in accents that you would come across and culture in general. So those are 10 things: food, quiet places, shopping hours, weather, friends and family, music, career, music in general, history, getting lashed on the weekend, the underdog mentality / cynicism, and accents are 10 things that I hugely miss about England. And my dad's coming next week, so I'll get a little bit of that over here. He's going to stay for 5 days in St. Louis, and then get this, because I thought he was going to stay here for 5 days and then he was going to go to Nashville because his wife knows some people in Nashville, so they were just going to go there. Then I figured they were going to go home. Oh, no, not at all. They're going to Nashville, then they're staying at Graceland for a couple of days, then they're going to God, there's like 3 other places in America. They're going to Vegas for a while.
I mean, if you're over here, might as well.
Then they're going to Australia.
But it's close. But it's closer to England than England.
Then they're going to Australia. Then they're going to New Zealand. Then they're going to Singapore. Yeah, this is a 6-week world tour they're going on.
They're making their way back.
No, wait, I don't know. I mean,
maybe make a stop in North Africa.
He does have a relative in New Zealand. I get that one. But everything else is just like random. So yeah, he's doing like a 6-week fucking world tour. We got 5 days with him next week actually, and then they're fucking up around the rest of the world, which is crazy. And I wish I had enough money to do that, but I don't. So there you go. That's some stuff that I miss about England, and the end of Level 2 podcast episode 60. That was fun. It's fun. Good to be back. Yeah, you feeling good? Feeling happy?
I'm feeling tired.
Tired? Yeah, me too.
I've realized how much. I forget how much you like by the end of it.
Oh yeah. I'm perky because I'm drinking a lot of Pepsi. That's what I was like. The last time I almost fell asleep when you were talking at me, I felt really bad about it. So I've been trying to like, pep myself up a little bit.
I also got mom texting me, so I need to take care of that here in a second.
So let us know what you think about Keegan's crises in life. Do you have a 2017 Corolla? Do you recommend it? And also creepypasta and urban legends of video games. We're super wanting to hear stories about that. If you comment anything on this video, then please put some of that in there because we love that. Have you ever moved country? And if so, what do you miss about the country that you came from?
I miss Tim Hortons peach juice.
Tim Hortons, yeah.
And ketchup chips. And all dressed are now here, but ketchup chips.
Yeah.
It's probably
you're going to get some of those when we go to Indy to grad. I was going to bring them down for you.
Oh, I'm excited. I've ordered them from Amazon before. They're expensive.
All right. Great to be back, guys. Do check out, if you haven't already, Codename Morpheus that went up on Thursday, and then we had Indy that went up on Friday this week. And of course, if you're watching this, it's Saturday, so happy weekend. And we love you guys so, so much. We'll be back again next week, assuming your car doesn't break down again.
It's new. It shouldn't.
Right. I hope not.
Don't jinx it.
Thanks a lot for watching. And as always,
welcome to the second level. Bye.
Ain't no game.